Hi there. This is Joe Margolis, part of a three-person working group consisting of Marion McMahon, my partner, and then Teresa McDonald, who is very active in her community, the Dorada community where she lives, where we all live. We are all a part of the Dorada community, and we are working on a. We're hoping to extend it into other things, but we're working on a sidewalk project now. And earlier this morning, it's about 1:15 in the afternoon today, Friday, June the 1st. And earlier this morning, about 8:30 or so, we spent about 2.5, 3 hours together. The first part of the morning, we met over at the Starbucks at at the new part of Belgate Shopping Center at across from the Circle K, um, near University City Boulevard and IKEA. And our purpose was to walk that corridor, that 1 mile corridor up and back. And we did that. We walked down. So what we did is and we caught some footage of it, but I just kind of wanted to give my overall feedback of what that felt like to me as a potential pedestrian. There were most of the time I never felt totally in danger of my life, but I'm going to let you know that that 1 mile stretch up and down both sides of the road is full of quite a few perils that I felt it was invigorating, to say the least. I don't mind being invigorated. I don't mind having my senses heightened. But if I had to walk that every day, I don't know how much I would enjoy walking that stretch of corridor along the road. Walking Walking from the Starbucks, we decided to cross the street and make our journey up and back always against traffic. So we had to cross the street from the Starbucks and start walking along there. And one of the first observations I made was that Circle K completed their sidewalk requirement by building a sidewalk that went behind their building, but it was not up against the road. It goes basically to nowhere. And so even though the city is requiring them to build sidewalks along the road, they didn't do that. Now, I did notice that there was a safety barrier that the NCDOT had installed there when they built this. And so that may be why according to current standards, they had to build the sidewalk behind the safety barrier. We also noticed that on the other side of the street along Starbucks, there was a place where the sidewalk actually ended, and and there's no sidewalk, and so we're wondering why there was actually no sidewalk there. And so we're figuring that there must be some coordination issues with the NCDOT that made it impossible for them to build the sidewalk right up on the road. So that may be something that has to be addressed. But just our experience walking along that road, I just felt when I first started walking against traffic, the closer I got to Interstate 85, I just felt like my senses were heightened because there was a quick right turn of cars just constantly coming, attempting to slow down from the speed that you have to drive on the highway to go with the flow of traffic and be safe. But it's clearly there's an intersection there with the safety of walkers that makes it a little treacherous if you're walking on there. And so we had to have our senses heightened. We just had to wait. We had to really try to be I felt more comfortable pressing myself as far back as I could on the right side of that right turn lane as I could while I waited for traffic. Most of the drivers were very slow to acknowledge, I felt, me as a pedestrian. And I don't think I think it's because it's designed for them to feel rather safe coming off the ramp at that point at the speeds that they're going without having to anticipate pedestrians. And so there's a definite design issue that would have to be, I feel, overcome to make me feel comfortable as a pedestrian. That said, after we made it, we actually waited until it was safe, and the three of us crossed over there, and I felt that walking along this next part of it across the bridge, I actually didn't feel uncomfortable at all, because they had basically all the way up to the edge of the bridge, they had what felt like a traffic lane distance, and then they had another guarded off lane of traffic that's blocked off that has not been opened up for anything yet. So, and then there's still room for 2 lanes of traffic to get across the bridge. And so from there, I did not have to go anywhere. Oftentimes on these highway overlook bridges, when you're crossing, it's to be safe walking against oncoming traffic. A pedestrian has to walk relatively close to that barrier on the other side of the bridge, which usually I'm 5'10" and a half. My legs are about between 30 and 32 inches to my waist. And the barrier comes up to just like maybe 6 inches above my knee. And I felt, I didn't have to even experience that treachery of like feeling so close to Interstate 85 as I attempted to walk across the bridge and just have to keep my eyes front as I see all this traffic overcoming, that if I just slipped and fell the wrong way, I'm in the traffic and I'm pretty much a dead man, and I might even injure someone in traffic. So the definitely, so but I didn't have, so the barriers are definitely not high enough for pedestrian use, but the lanes are wide enough where I don't have to go close to those barriers walking towards traffic that's heading from Neal Road to this part of the bridge. And as I crossed the bridge, I felt safe, and then had to, there was not a lot of traffic turning right from that direction, but had there been, I would have felt like I needed to wait a little longer. But it was pretty easy to get across, and I kept going. And then interestingly, we walked, and then there's this metal barrier, and then to our right is this basically a cliff. I mean, it's a man-made cliff because the road had to be elevated, looks like about 100 feet from the basin of a valley when the road was initially constructed. And ironically, this is land that IBM owns, that is for sale, that the city of Charlotte is waiting for. And it just, you have to go look at this land for yourself to just see how impractical it is to expect a commercial project or any kind of project to come in here and develop this and go ahead and put the sidewalks in. It is such an impractical expectation that the current city process for this project is on, and so that's why we are strongly supporting getting city help for this corridor to be given sidewalks. And so we walked it. Ongoing traffic. We did see one pedestrian walking against traffic on the other side, and so we did note that. And as we kept walking to the other side, the things we noticed was just how much of a steep grade this side of the property was on, and it's just, we don't think we should have to wait for this for some company or some group to figure out the difficulties of this topography to get it developed. If the city is really about connecting Charlotte, and this is a key corridor to a light rail, then we shouldn't have to wait. We shouldn't have to look for alternatives, is what we're seeing, and that's kind of the conclusion. It just felt, walking past this side of the road, it just felt so impossible to even imagine imagine that we would get sidewalks in a timely fashion on this side of the road by waiting for me personally, it felt so impossible for us to wait, because the land is just, it's so impractical. Maybe it's a nature preserve. I don't know what you could build there that would be good land use right now. So there's that part of it. And then, so we finally made it to Neal Road, and we crossed the street. And then I noticed immediately on the other side of the road, the side that's between, I believe it's Nathaniel Alexander Elementary School. I believe it's that school, but it's the school, or the Moorhead Elementary School. It might be the Moorhead Elementary School. Between the Moorhead Elementary School and Neal Road, that vacant parcel of land on the other side that IBM also owns, that's up for sale. we noticed that the land is pretty much further along Neal Road. The land is level to the school before it starts dropping off into the valley, and there's a lot more land to this corner that could be developed right now and used for something. And the conversations I noticed were all about high density things, and so maybe, I don't know what, I'm definitely interested in figuring out what can be, if that could help the city figure out what could be developed on that land, because now there is a drop off where it becomes more and more impractical, but you have a much more usable land. And so what I would be interested in doing is figuring out how to get that land, get IBM to consider rezoning the parcel of that land that before it drops off into something like a B1 use with a transit supportive overlay, so that it's ready, and so that it's ready for whoever builds it next. To it limits the type of things that can be built there, that to certain things that would exclude, like things like a gas station or anything like that. Something that's going to be useful to the community and helping drive this area, this part of Charlotte, being transit friendly, and the development around there to being a transit friendly type of development. That's what it felt like to me. And then it drops down again. I have no idea what the use is. I know on this side of the land, the parcel that IBM owns goes all the way along the exit coming off of I-85 South up to University City Boulevard. So we pass that, we get back to the bridge, and this is what was interesting. The traffic coming from University City, there's a lot of traffic that comes up University City that's trying to get on 85 South, and we noticed a lot more of that than the traffic trying to get on 85 North there, although there was quite a bit of that too. And that makes sense to me because this is a key access point to I-85 South, taking you first, I guess, to Gaston County, but a lot of people use 85 South to try to speed their way to uptown. And so what we noticed is that we had to wait a lot longer. There was just a lot of traffic that was making its way to this corridor, and they just it was very heavy. There was no at least on this part of the traffic, there was no median that was designed for pedestrian crossing. And we just found ourselves having to walk along the edges of painted lines to get until we got to a place where traffic was slow enough. And it took a while. It took about 5 minutes for traffic to slow down. So there's nothing, and from being experienced as driving there, there's just nothing there as a driver that makes me feel like I need to slow down or go a little slower in that corridor. So in that sense, it's definitely not built for pedestrian safety in mind, and and I'm not mad at the state of North Carolina for that, because they built this corridor. I think it first opened in 2005, maybe 2006, when so it's about 12 or 13 years old. This corridor, it used to just be an exit. It used to be a road to a bridge that got you on I-85 north or south, until they extended University City to Tryon Street. So I'm not mad at them for having, for the way it was, because it was probably hard for them to conceptualize this, but it's not pedestrian friendly. And so then we cross there, and now we're at the point where we're crossing the bridge. Now, if I get why most walkers use the other side, whether they're walking against traffic or walking with it, even though it's safer when there's not sidewalks, generally speaking, to walk against traffic, supposedly. When you get to that bridge, if you go to cross that bridge, once you get there, there is very little space between you and that bridge. There's maybe like 2.5 feet between what's a safe walking path, so that you don't get hit by cars, and the bridge. And again, the barrier between I-85 falling off the bridge and into I-85 is only probably about probably like 2.5 feet high. It's probably not even 3 feet high, so it's treacherous. And so when you're walking over there, you see that well over your point of balance where you could fall down. If you fell the right way as you're crossing the bridge, you could fall into traffic. I even had to till Marion, she started feeling so uncomfortable that she started jogging. I said, please stop, don't jog. Just walk walk with a purpose, but don't jog. And she did listen to me because uh, her inclination was flight to get out of there as quick as possible. But it's so perilous. It's not safe. If I were a runner running across, trying to have a run across this bridge, I would not feel safe making that run. I would not. It would not feel safe to me at all. And so that on this left hand side. Now on the right hand side, there's enough clearance with paved road that's not being used for traffic that I would certainly feel safe running across that, but not any other part. And so, but it was scary. Like I made a comment that my initial reaction was I just felt like I jumped out of a plane. Now it's probably not that dramatic, but my adrenaline did have to pick up. My adrenaline rushed a little bit because it was an adrenaline rush to walk across that bridge with this traffic coming both ways so fast, and knowing that one false move, I could be in that traffic periling, and to my I could fall into that traffic to my almost certain death. And so and I just don't, as a pedestrian, I don't think pedestrians would appreciate that adrenaline rush. So this side of the road is definitely not needs some improvements for pedestrians to use. And I know there's some intent for pedestrians to use this side of the road, because when I crossed, just as soon as I crossed the bridge, I stumbled across my first filled concrete median that actually had pedestrian ramps to it. So I know for a fact that there is a pedestrian use intent, because as you cross the bridge, you've got this ramp. And so I wonder, like, what would it be like if I were someone who had a mobility scooter and I needed to get from point A to point B? What would it be like to go across the bridge with I-85 to my left like this, riding to that safety ramp? So it's built with a safety ramp in mind, but on the least safe side of the bridge. So it's not, and again, crossing over to this pedestrian ramp, I still felt the need to go slow and and consider the fact that none of these cars are the driving experience for those drivers in that car is not designed to anticipate a pedestrian at all. I'm not even talking about are they used to seeing pedestrians. I'm talking about just the way the lanes and the traffic patterns are. It's not designed for that. So even though I made it to the median, I felt safe as long as the left turn light was red. I felt safe walking to that middle part of the concrete median, the only one I experienced along this route. But then I felt like I needed to still, when I went to try to cross over to the other side, to consider the fact that those drivers coming to turn right and get on 85 North might not be thinking about me. It's not designed for them to consider walkers. And I want people should consider walkers anyway, but I think it's a very important issue to talk about design, and that's something that I noticed. So that's my reaction about this corridor and going back. And so then after that, we get past the bridge and we get back to Starbucks. And that's when we noticed that, and the only thing I saw that was suspicious, so the sidewalk that Blvd looks like they built something that looks like a sidewalk that goes behind the back doors of their property. And the reason why I think it's a sidewalk is because it goes from a sidewalk that connects part of their property to behind their building. And I have no idea how they're able to get away with calling that a sidewalk when that is not going to have any practical use for pedestrians or bikers who are trying to be connected in Charlotte. And I don't understand how they got away with that, but we just came away with the impression that this area definitely as we experienced it as pedestrians, as I suspected, definitely needs sidewalks. I've ridden it as a biker before, and I feel somewhat safe as a biker, but I wonder how I would feel riding back from University City. I don't know for sure. But even there, I think there's plenty of room to build bike lanes. This should be a priority for the city right away. People from Derrida coming up University City who are pedestrians deserve to feel connected all the way to University City Station, to any of the retail activities that are going on there. And this should definitely be a priority for the city. to link this corridor up, especially with the missed opportunity for busing to go down University City Boulevard that's been passed up. It's a terrible missed opportunity to leave this corridor behind. And so that's my initial impression.